Everybody, welcome to the Data Incubator info session. We are going to go ahead and get started. I think people are going to trickle in, but we have so much to cover that I'm worried if we don't start right on time that we won't get to everything, and that is really what's most important. So I want to welcome you guys. Hi, my name is Erica Underwood, and I am the director at the program Incubator. For those of you that might not know, we are a fellowship, scholarship, and placement company. And I'm also joined by one of our excellent instructors, Don Fox. So welcome, Don.
Yeah, hello.
So we have promised you all an excellent info session today. We will be here providing you some tips and tricks and insider help to help you master your capstone proposal and also to help you ace your TDI interview. We'll give you some insight into what you can expect and how to best prepare for that. To start things off, I'm going to give you a quick overview of our program and everything we offer. We have some really exciting new updates that I can't wait to share with you. If you guys have questions, make sure you put it in the Q&A section, and we will be getting to those at the end of the presentation. As a reminder, our session is an hour long, so if we don't get to all of your questions, feel free to email us at admissions@thedataincubator.com, and we will be happy to help and answer your questions. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I mentioned we have some exciting news, and this is it. So we have 3 programs that we're offering now, and this is very exciting. Traditionally, we've only had one, which was our full-time data science fellowship program. We just started our part-time data science fellowship program this spring, which is a really great opportunity for those that are still in school or have full-time jobs, but want to learn data science and participate in our fellowship program. Same curriculum, everything just done at a much slower pace, so you can have, it's not a full-time, I guess, commitment. And then the exciting new program that we are unveiling and launching this summer is our new part-time data analyst program. So this is going to be focused obviously on more of data analytics instead of data science. And so if that is something that is of interest to you, the application is now open for that program as well. I'm going to give you a little overview of all of our program offerings. The similarities of all of our programs is that they are all very intense, and they're built around hands-on data-focused curriculums. We offer full-time and part-time for the data science fellowship program, and right now just part-time for the data analyst program. But all of these programs are packed with a lot of information, and you're going to have a lot of exposure and experience with using a lot of different data tools. All of our programs are very thorough, so each week in the full-time program, I think it's each 1 or 2 weeks in the part-time program, you're going to be focusing on a different data science or data analytic tool or approach. And so in addition to lectures, you're also going to be participating in hands-on practice. And this really goes back to our main focus is fostering an interactive learning environment. So all of our students work on what we call these mini projects. And the idea is that you will be able to hit the ground running once you're in a place of employment or once you see these projects in real life or concepts in real life, because you've worked with them, you've had hands-on experience with them throughout our curriculum. Additionally, our programs are very collaborative. We want our students to not only work with their colleagues and instructors, but also have the opportunity to network and connect with our hiring partners. So one aspect of our program is helping with placements outside of our program, whether that is in a data science role or a data analyst role. These are things that we also offer as part of our program. And because it is career focused, we have career coaches that help you succeed in your data focused career. So not only are you going to learn how to present yourself by attending some of our career search workshops, but you're also going to have the opportunity to work with the #1 resume writing company to get a polished resume and cover letter for you to go forth in your job search efforts. And just in general, that's a great service to have access to. And kind of get a polished, really great cover letter and resume after you leave our program. And lastly, our programs are very interactive. Every student of our programs are provided a Jupyter server for the duration of the course, so students can follow along and lecture and see and edit raw code that's being run. Also, we have an interactive grader, so you can receive immediate feedback when you interact with that grader, which is really helpful when you're working on projects or concepts outside of, that lecture environment. You'll be able to know, did I do this correctly or not? And then, of course, go back and connect with colleagues or instructors if you do have questions or you're seeing that you're missing something. We do have detailed curriculums for each program. I don't want to get too much into that because this is more about the Capstone project and preparing you for the TDI interviews. But if you would like to see more of a detailed curriculum, you can email us at admissions@thedataincubator.com. Let us know which program or programs you're interested in seeing the curriculum for, and we'd be happy to send that out. And we'll show you week by week all the topics you guys are going to cover in each program, and you can figure out which one would be the best for you. Great. So this info section is mainly focused on our data science fellowship program, because in our data science fellowship program, we work on capstone projects. So as I mentioned, fellows and scholars complete weekly mini projects to kind of demonstrate their understanding of core data science topics. But in addition to that, we also have those students work on a capstone project. And so this info session is going to focus on what is a capstone project? Why do we have you guys focus on a capstone project? How to prepare your capstone project? And then ultimately how to prepare for that TDI interview where you will be talking a little bit about that capstone project. If you are interested in the data analyst program, we don't work on capstone projects, but there is still part of an interview as part of your application. So stick around and we'll talk a little bit about that. So, as I mentioned, many of you are like, what is the point of this capstone project? Um, and a great example of how to showcase your skills and your business application is the capstone project. Students spend months working on and refining both the technical code base and their presentation of the capstone project to ultimately appeal to hiring partners. Think of this as a portfolio piece, if you will. This allows individuals with very little experience outside of academia an opportunity to really flex their technical muscles using a real data set. Once they get the technical side down, then they can start working on the business application of it. And the hope is by the end of our program that our graduates are able to speak articulately and in detail to any technical or non-technical person about their capstone project and the value proposition as it applies in a business context. So what are the uses for capstone projects? Well, as I mentioned earlier, it can be a useful tool navigating future job interviews. All of our hiring partners know that our students work on capstone projects. And so many of them will ask you, what's your capstone project? And this is a really great way to showcase your skills and your abilities to work with data and what you've learned and implemented in our course. It also helps you build your resume and helps you stand out from other applicants. Again, kind of showing that real world business application. And then, the best projects in our program are selected to be presented in front of some of our hiring partners in a capstone showcase. So just another way to get in front of hiring partners to get experience talking about your work in this project that you've been working on. I'm now going to flip it over to Don, and he's going to talk a little bit about capstone project requirements. So go ahead, Don.
Yeah, all right. So go to the next slide. All right, thank you. So all the capstone projects are going to be different, but there are a set of core requirements we identify that we're looking for a completed capstone project. So let's go ahead and go through those. So the first one is some sort of clear business objective. And when I say business there, I don't really like the word business there. We really mean is some sort of motivation, understanding why you're doing this project. We're not looking for academic projects. We're looking for something that has a problem, that has an audience, that is well motivated with some clear objective of what you're trying to do. Um, of course, the best capstones that is very clear in their pitch early on what is a problem they're going to solve. The second requirement is some sort of data ingestion, some sort of non trivial data processing. Very rarely is data science just simply downloading a CSV and good to go. That's very rarely the case. Oftentimes, you have to bring in different data sets, merge in different data sets, clean things out, fix certain things, work with APIs to gather more data. We're looking for that non trivial data ingestion, data processing in your capstone project. As the expression goes, a picture says 1,000 words. Same thing with visualizations. Visualizations are a great way to convey some meaning, some discovery, some idea, a result and conclusion regarding your capstone. So we ask for a set of two distinct visualizations that describe your project, that are tied to your project, for the capstone requirement. The fourth option, the fourth requirement is one of the following, which is some sort of machine learning component, some sort of distributed computing component, and an interactive website. You can do all three. You can just do one. We just simply ask one of those three. Most people have some sort of machine learning component in their capstone, but people often have some sort of interactive website and perhaps even distributed computing. And the last requirement is a deliverable. You might be wondering, what is a deliverable? And one form a deliverable can take is some sort of web application. A web application you can easily share to someone. Here's a URL, try out my machine learning model I built, the inputs, how the product works, what the result looks like. That is one form, a common form for a deliverable. We understand that not all project makes sense to have some sort of web application. So oftentimes a deliverable will be the form of a code repo, a repository that you can send to the instructor, but also send to potential some people who want to hire you so they can showcase the code built for your project. So they can see the code, they see how it runs. They also see a demonstration of good coding practices, some of the things that you'll be learning throughout the program. Who cares if it just works, if it's not readable, not maintainable? So you can showcase your coding ability through that code repo that has your project nicely organized. So here we have a set of videos of past from past cohorts about great capstones. But I would say all the great capstones boil down to a clear, concise business objective, understanding within the first, let's say, 30 seconds, who is the end user of this product, what problem it's going to solve, what are the challenges, and what is the form of the final product. So, for example, in the last cohort, there was someone who was working on a whiskey recommender. And that was motivated by the fact that when you go into a bar, you see all these options of all these whiskeys and different scotches, and it can be rather overwhelming. And this fact that it can be overwhelming might be a turnoff from getting into the Scotch game, getting into the whiskey game. You don't want to sound like a novice. You might be intimidated. So they're looking to bring down that barrier of entry to figure out for a person who's starting off into getting to scotches and whiskeys, what is the whiskeys I should try? So they said, well, it's rather difficult to describe certain characteristics of whiskey. So let's have a very simple drop down menu of certain flavors they like, certain characteristics as the input, and comes out is a set of recommendations about the best whiskeys to try out, but can also be filtered by price. If I'm a novice, I don't want to drop $100 on a bottle of whiskey. I want something that is closer to my price range. So there they identified a problem and thought about what the end product would look like and the motivation behind it. We want to get people into the whiskey game, into scotches. How can we bring that barrier down? We'll talk more about those nice ways to make your project stand out in a couple of slides, but go on the next slide. Yeah, so let's go into tips for a great capstone project. So let's go on to the next slide. And one of those is to make it personal and show some passion. When someone gives a pitch, when someone delivers their capstone, what's really going to help people get hooked to it, to get interested in it, and seeing the passion in their voice, seeing the passion in their facial expression as they deliver. What is their capstone all about? Make it personal. Might be there. This might be a certain problem that you are trying to solve that your capstone will address. For example, for this current cohort, we have someone who's really into Carnatic music, which is a very specific South Indian style of music. And I've never heard of Carnatic music before. I'm not a musician, so maybe it's rather common, but I think most people have never heard of it. And you can tell the passion in his voice. He's rather passionate about this field. He was saying, hey, one of the things I want to develop is a tool for people to identify these ragams, these melodic phrases in the Carnatic music. So right off the bat, we see the passion in his voice. We see a project that says, hey, what's that all about? I want to hear more about it. This is very different. We see that in delivery. It was very clear who the end user was. He talked about how this is very popular in South India with a lot of concerts, and it's rather difficult to identify these ragams for the untrained ear. So he's looking to have a web application that can take in that Carnatic music, identify the ragams to help people learn this style of music. That was in his pitch. And because of that, he's being chosen for Capstone Showcase, which I think we'll talk later on in this presentation. One of the things you want to do is you want to be creative about your project. You want to look for something that's going to make your project stand out from the rest. Part of it is making it personal, part of it is showing passion. But another thing is to consider, has other people worked on similar projects in the past before? And I understand it's rather difficult to come up with a brand new, unique project altogether. However, if you feel you're developing a capstone that you think other people have done similar things, that's okay, but you want to take the moment. You want to take the time to say, okay, for my capstone, how can I make it different? How can I make it unique? Is there another data set I'm going to use that people haven't considered? Is there a different end user that this project should be applied to that has been neglected? You want to take the moment to understand how your project is going to be different from the rest. So you can, when we hear your pitch, when people hear your pitch, they don't say, okay, we've seen 1,000 of these before. Say, oh, they're considering a different end user. They're considering a different data set. They're considering a different form of the final product. This is unique. This is cool. I'm going to pay more attention. I want to see what they've been up to. Of course, the earlier start, the better. Oftentimes, people have a lot of different ideas of what they want to do, different data sets to consider, and that can be rather overwhelming. You can get sort of analysis paralysis. You know, get sort of like you go to the grocery store, you look at the aisle of toothpastes, and I get overwhelmed about what is the best toothpaste and toothbrush to buy. So you want to go ahead and take out a piece of paper. Maybe I'm old fashioned, but I usually take out a piece of paper and write all the things that I want to do, all the things I want to do, all the different data sets I'm working with or potentially get, and start kind of configuring things. What are the things that are feasible? What are things I can do now? Part of it is gathering the data, looking at it, making sure you have those data sources on the go when you start the program, when you start working on it, so you can make the best progress. Understand what is the motivation. Oftentimes, you see people whose motivation for the project isn't there, or they have various motivations, and when they give it their pitch, it's sort of all over the place. You want to kind of narrow down what is that core motivation, what is the core objective, so you can sound confident when you deliver your pitch. So when you work on your project, you're really making progress on it. Kind of go with what I said before. You want to start crafting an outline, start considering what are the steps to go from that germ of the idea to some sort of final product. What are the techniques, the analytical techniques, the technical skills that are required for your project? What are certain goals, certain milestones in the project that you can kind of adhere to make sure you're on the right track? When you start letting out this outline, you might want to consider certain areas where not necessarily it's an ending point, but where you can go ahead and say, you know what, I have something that is decent that I can show off. Yes, you might want to do X, Y, and Z, but within a limited time, you might only get to X and Y. So consider, what are those milestones? What are those steps that are required to get that project along the way? One of the things we talked about is, who is this product for? Who is this project for? What problem is it going to solve? How is it going to make someone's life easier and better? For example, we have someone in our current cohort. She was saying how when she goes into the fridge, she realizes she wastes a lot of food because things spoil. So she's got to have a way to identify some good recipes to make with the food she has. So there she was, a personal project. You can see the frustration in her voice initially, but you also see her tone, or change in tone of voice when she says, "Okay, I'm gonna develop a capstone project to fix this problem. This is a big problem, by the way," because then she quoted how some fraction of food is wasted in the U.S. every year. So this will also have those benefits, reducing the amount of waste we produce and the amount of money that we blow because we just buy food that spoils and rots. So understand what is the final goal your project problem is going to solve, and who has that problem. So who would be most interested in the success of that project? So we keep on saying this here. Identify who is most interested in the success of this project. Who are the stakeholders? Who want to, somehow invest in this idea or see this further proceed and develop and mature and get to a final stage? Who are the stakeholders? Who is the end user? And who would be but also with your project, understand is, how can you take the techniques and the things you've done in this project and translate it to a different field. For example, maybe you are doing some sort of, I know we have someone currently right now who is trying to take a set of academic papers and translate down into a core set of papers for people to look into, so they don't have to spend all this time going through all these research paper that may not be sort of dead ends or just sort of waste of time. And one of the things I've been asking them is, how can you take that and translate it to a different field? Can you take that whole process of summarizing this text data, can use it for, I don't know, say news articles, for example. So consider for your project, what are the different areas that you can apply it to? Because there might be employers who say, you know what, I like your project, but I'm kind of curious. How can you take those skills and translate it to our domain, our expertise, our area of research and development, or whatever our business end is?
Sorry about that. Thank you, Don. Don comes from an inspector's perspective, and this is very important, I think, in discussing how you set up your project, how you go about choosing the topic and the direction of your project. I'm going to talk a little bit on the hiring side. What do hiring partners want to see out of these capstone projects? What will make them appealing as a portfolio piece as you start to interview and go out for different roles? So the first thing, Don's already covered it, but always unique projects capture the attention of our hiring partners. Many of our hiring partners have been with us for years and have seen many capstone showcases. So they're always looking for new and creative ideas from our students. I think that it doesn't have to be a creative database per se, but maybe a unique way that you're going to look at that, or a unique problem that you're going to solve with that. Again, as we've mentioned, a clear business objective or takeaway, especially for hiring partners, they want to see that you can take something like academic papers and translate it in a way that has a real world business application. A lot of your capstone projects are probably not going to directly correlate to something, to the industry that you're going to go into or the company that you're going to work in, but you want to make sure it has some kind of business application that is super understandable, that can be applied to any industry or any company, and that's easy to take away. Something applicable, as I said. So you want to make sure that this is something that can relate to all industries and all businesses in some kind of way. And it might not even be the actual end tool, but maybe the techniques that you're using. And speaking of techniques, this is a great way to showcase your technical abilities. So you want to highlight your abilities, show your hiring partners why you'd be a great addition to your team. This is what I can do. This is what I have done successfully. And just really take this time to shine and show what you are capable of. And lastly, show off your data visualization skills. It's so important. So many companies are looking for this skill. We definitely cover it in our program, and you will definitely have a lot of experience at the end of your capstone, making it kind of pretty and visually stimulating for our hiring partners. So how do you perfect your pitch, right? For us, we give you guys, there's a couple different opportunities that you have to pitch your project when you're in our program. If you get selected for that Capstone Showcase, you roughly have about 5 minutes. So it's a small amount of time that you have to take this big project and condense it into presenting it to an audience. And how do you do that? Well, you want to make sure that you tell your story. So the first thing is to know your audience and how you can best engage them. So you want to focus on the what, because it matters just as much as the why. So setting the stage for what you're discussing, using descriptive language, make the why easy to understand. Don talked about this a lot. I think personal capstone projects are always resonate a bit more because it's very clear that this person had a problem and they've created a capstone to solve it. And then you can very much understand why they are doing that. And make it relatable. I'm not a huge whiskey drinker, but I can understand that I have issues sometimes finding a nice bottle of wine. So if that person was presenting their capstone project, I could definitely understand how it could be overwhelming to try and find an alcohol beverage in a, a price range that meets your needs at that point in time. The other thing you want to do is pay attention to your delivery. So, how you speak matters just as much as what you're saying. So, you want to make sure that your tone is, friendly and approachable, that you are emphasizing what you're saying by the inflections of your voice, that you're not just a monotone speaker. Ways to get great at this is just record yourself and re-listen to it back, and you'll hear maybe you say a lot, or you speak too fast. So take it down a little bit, slow it down, because you're going to always present a little bit faster than what you practice too. So just practicing your delivery, because that will go a long way when you actually do have to present your project. And the biggest thing is that you want to make sure that you are confident and clear and concise in your presentation. And that is where practice comes in, right? Lastly, you want to end with a bang. So every story has a beginning, middle, and end, and that's how every pitch should have as well. So if someone only remembers how you ended it, what would be the last impact you leave with that person? Will your ending leave the audience wanting more? Many of our students, because it is such a small amount of time you have to work on these projects, that the goal is not to complete the project entirely, but you can say, like, this is what I've done so far, but this is where I'm going. This is what the next steps would be. And that's always super intriguing, because it's usually very cool next steps that you're like, yeah, tell me when that's done, because I'm very interested. So you always want to kind of leave the presentation on a high note, where you're recapping everything in a positive manner, but also kind of leaving them wanting more. And lastly, you just want to make sure that your pitch is focused. And so, like I said, 3 to 5 minutes will go super fast. And this is where self auditing comes into play. You need to make sure that you're going through your slide deck or your GitHub or your actual app that you're going to be presenting, and make sure that you're only highlighting the main message that you're trying to convey. And is the audience going to be interested in this? Sometimes when we work on a project, we're so attached that we have to take a step back and think about, I really want to talk about this because I worked on this technical aspect for a really long time, but the audience might not care as much. So sometimes doing that self auditing will help you get down to a concise pitch. And, you know, would someone want to learn more? Was I likable in this presentation? Is this going to inspire people to invest or want to use my product or app or whatever the Capstone project is focused on? So these are things that you can ask yourself to help you get to a more concise presentation that hopefully can fit into a 3 to 5 minute time span. Next up, I think we're going to switch gears a little bit. That was about the Capstone project specifically, but now we're going to talk a little bit about our admissions interviews and what you can expect and what that will look like. So
Yes.
go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I will handle the next two slides here. Yeah, so for the interview process, they will take in groups of 4 to 6 students. So don't be surprised if you're not the only one there. There'll be a couple other students there, and they will last. The interview process will last anywhere from half an hour to an hour. And what we're going to do is going to kind of rotate through the people who are there. I'm going to ask you to pitch your proposed project that you submitted for the application. We're going to give you anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes. So that's why it's important to practice your pitch, get those things honed down and what you want to say. Make sure you don't ramble. Because as Erica said, it's going to go rather fast. And this is a time to showcase your initial findings. What is the business objective? What is the motivation? Who is the end user? What problem ultimately are you trying to solve? Of course, this is early on in the stage, so we don't, you're not going to have some sort of final grand result, but we're going to definitely want to pick up, okay, they have an idea, they have a clear motivation, they know what they're going to do. This seems like a good capstone project. So we also ask you during that time to share any links about any preliminary works that you have currently for your capstone. As I said before, the your project proposal should focus on what you submitted, but just because you submit it doesn't mean you forget about it. You want to keep on making progress between the time you submit your application on your capstone, especially honing down what is that motivation and why someone would be interested in the success of this project. Oftentimes, we have people who come in and they start to ramble. It's not really clear what's the whole purpose behind their proposed project. So we might ask some clarifying questions. We might ask some as well as technical questions of what you've done. But you really want to make sure that when you go in there for those 2 to 3 minutes, that you let us know what is the objective, what is the motivation, what problem you're going to solve, what are the data sets involved, who is the end user, and what is the final form of the product. Want to make sure that you really thought some time about this capstone. You're really committed to make progress on this front. Our partnership team will also be there, so they might ask some questions related to your job search or even something about your project as well.
I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about the interviews and how you can best prepare. I want to take a second because the interview that we just described was specifically for the data science fellowship. Now, for the data analyst program, as I mentioned previously, you will have an interview as well. But this is going to be not technical. Since you're not working on a capstone, you don't have a presentation to do for any instructors. It's mainly going to be talking to you a little bit about your past experience, talking to you about what you're hoping to do with data analysts program and what your, dream or, your career goals are after the program would end. And so I do think that these techniques and preparations would go for all of the interviews that we'll be doing for both of our programs. So obviously you want to test the technology beforehand. We use Zoom. I think at this point in the COVID world we're living in, everybody should be very familiar with Zoom. But if you're not, please familiarize yourself with that. You will use a chat interface to put your links to your projects, as Don mentioned. You want to make sure that you're using a computer. We can tell if somebody's using a cell phone. You can usually hear background noise. It's spotty internet. So make sure you're in a place with good internet and you're on your computer. Schedule your interviews ASAP. Spots are first come, first serve. And you want to have a time that's convenient for you so you're not rushed, so you're not stressed. So make sure you get in there and you schedule that interview time that works best for you. Also, the week that we conduct interviews that's it. That's the week that we conduct it. Unfortunately, we can't extend past it. So we have a very tight admissions timeline. So make sure that you are not only scheduling, but making sure that you understand that it's also an Eastern time zone. So that kind of trips people up too. And so make sure that you put it on your calendar so you don't forget. Also look professional. This is somewhat of an interview, so business casual, business professional is always encouraged. Um, and as we've mentioned, you want to prepare in advance. You want to make sure that you practice your pitch or kind of some basic interview questions that might be asked. You want to limit distractions, and you just want to come in prepared and confident to ace the interview. Um, is this you, Don? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, let's see. Well, I think we could both do this by this point. But as I said earlier, once you submit your application, that doesn't mean you forget about your capstone. You want to use that time between the application submission and the interview to make progress on your capstone. Of course, we're not going to whatever you put in your application for your capstone. Things change, right? Things change, projects evolve. So don't fear that. Don't feel like whatever you put there, you're tied to it. We're not going to come back and say, well, according to your application, you said you're going to do this, 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 and that. Why aren't you talking about that? We're not going to do that. Adhere to some of the things you put in stone. Don't feel like you're putting your project in stone in the application. So we definitely feel free to make progress between the application and the interview. That's why it's important to do the application as soon as possible. Make sure you have a compelling intro and some good takeaways. You want to be specific, concise, make sure you don't ramble. Those 3 minutes are going to go by rather quickly. You want to be natural. You want to be calm. You want to be cool. You want to feel comfortable. When people are nervous, that shows. I know it might be tempting to read from a script, but ditch the script. When people read from a script, they come off robotic and rather monotone, and just there's a lack of passion when you read from a script. So yeah, practice without a script, get that message, be passionate about. Uh, we're looking forward to seeing your pitches when you apply.
Yes. And to that point, let's talk about some important dates and what our application timeline looks like currently. So, as I mentioned, our summer application is open right now. And that is for not only the data science fellowship program, full time and part time, but also the part time data analytics program. Our full time cohort for the data science program is going to run from June 28th to August 20th. And then our part time program for both the data analyst and the data science program is going to run from June 28th to November 11th. And remember, in the beginning, I said obviously the difference with the part time is that it's just more time. And you can see that here. So you're going to have more time, more spread out, time to kind of dig into our curriculum for those that have other things going on in their life. If you are like, hey, I want a job tomorrow, then I definitely recommend the full-time program. That's going to be a quick 8 weeks, and then hopefully you'll be out in the job field with this certified training. So application is open now, but not for long. It closes this Friday, May 7th. So if you are interested in applying, please do so immediately. Once you apply to our program, the first part is just a basic application. We're going to ask you, your name and your address. We're also going to ask you a little bit about your academic experience and history and degree information, stuff like that. After that gets in, then you have 72 hours to complete your challenge. And the challenge is going to be that part where you submit a capstone proposal. And so that would be due on May 10th. So you want to make sure that you get that application in ASAP, and then you want to make sure that you do your challenge immediately. I really recommend not waiting to the last minute, because you don't know if there's going to be, this is like the last absolute deadline. So after May 10th, if you run into some kind of technical glitch or something like that, we cannot extend it past that date, unfortunately, so that we can enroll everybody by the time the cohort starts June 28th. The other exciting thing I want to tell you guys is, because you attended this info session today, we will be giving you guys priority application review. So when you apply to our program, there's a text box, and you can just put that you attended this info session, and that will get you priority application review. So very exciting. Make sure you take advantage of that opportunity. You cannot complete the challenge unless you've submitted an application. So as I mentioned before, make sure you submit that application ASAP. It should take maybe 10 minutes of your time, and then you'll have a little bit longer to work on that challenge and the capstone proposal that you're going to submit. Then we will ask you to come on and do interviews, and after those interviews, you will get notified about your acceptance into the program. That, I think, wraps up our part of this presentation. I want to make sure to leave some time for questions. So if you haven't already done that, if you have some questions, please put them in the Q&A section, and let me pop over there and see what we've got going on. Don, it looks like is somebody saying, is the Capstone Showcase part of the interview process or after completion of the program?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, so Capstone Showcase is not part of the interview process. What Capstone Showcase is that during week 6 of our program, we invite hiring partners. It's a virtual event these days, and we choose maybe 4 to 6 people part of each group. So in this case, looks like for our current group, I think we have 10 people who are going to present next week who get chosen. These are the capstones that we really like within our program, and they get to pitch their proposed project in front of a couple of hiring partners. We have an East Coast event and a West Coast event that are just based upon a time zone. So that's Capstone Showcase. That's why it's important that once you're in the program, that you're also you're also moving along that project idea. You get better in every week, so you be selected for that Capstone Showcase. So that's what that's all about.
And I should just add on that even if you're not selected to present at the Capstone Showcase, all students are invited. We have lots of hiring partners that attend. And after the presentations of those chosen students, we do open up networking rooms and really try and foster that networking with hiring partners, even if you didn't present. So keep that in mind, that this is a networking opportunity for all of our students, regardless of if you present or if you do not. Don, somebody's asking, can we propose more than one capstone project?
It's not advised you propose more than one capstone project because you don't want to have sort of divided loyalty, have your time split between multiple capstones. So focus on one. And of course, there might be different avenues on that capstone project, might be little sub projects, things that are common related, but that fall within a certain theme. Only propose one project. Don't avoid a situation where you're sort of split in time working on various sets of different unrelated projects.
Yeah. Somebody's asking, will I be able to share on screen or just link in the chat for the audience to follow the presentation? Don, do you have thoughts here? I think we kind of have some instructors that prefer a link and some are okay with sharing screens. What's your thought?
Yes. My thought is I always let people share their screen. I feel like everyone's, we've done the Zoom thing for over a year now. We know how to share screens. So I have to tell people, hey, if you're comfortable, you can share your screen. You don't have to. I'm not going to penalize you whether you do or don't. But be ready to do so either way.
I think the most important thing is that you are having some kind of deliverable that you can share, whether that is a PowerPoint, a GitHub link, something that shows some of the work that you've done initially on this project. Somebody's saying, if it seems like they're saying it seems like we have to know a lot of data science before the program. How can we already make progress on the capstone project before the interview? Seems like you need to know a lot of data science before the boot camp. Don, do you want to kind of address this a little bit? And
Yeah. So regarding the interview process when you apply, the most important thing there is some sort of motivation, objective, and clear objective regarding your project. Uh, you can have someone can come in with a very complicated neural network model using the state of the art, and they come in and it's not really clear to us what's the purpose behind it, who is the end user, who is the target audience, how this product will fit into everybody's daily life, or how it would fit in the final form of it. That's not a good project. So that's why we adhere to the things that are less of the one things we're going to really look for are the things that are not necessarily hard data science tools or work there. We want to make sure that, hey, someone here is bringing in a good idea. Yes, they may not have all the skills and all the knowledge to have a final product, final, because it's never really final, for the interview process. But this is someone that has a promising idea. They seem like they're really passionate about it. They can come off, they can handle our course load. So this is someone we want to bring in who has promise regarding the capstone. So I think sometimes it might feel that way when other people come in and have some sort of preliminary results and some sort of conclusions, maybe a working model. Don't fret. Don't be intimidated by that. We're really looking for is what I said before: an objective, a motivation, a clear end user, understanding the data being involved. Of course, it's going to help you to do some sort of preliminary looking into the data and playing around with it. But don't feel like you have to have everything nailed down, everything solved and working when you go into the interview.
yeah, and I think to echo Don, the idea is that you're working on this capstone for the 8 weeks of the program too. So you do not have to have it finished. You do not have to have it remotely finished. The idea is that you have just an idea that we can, work on and grow throughout the 8 weeks of our curriculum. Somebody is saying, what if I already submitted an application? Will I still have priority consideration? You mentioned. Yes, if you just email us at admissions@thedataincubator.com, we will go ahead and tag that to your application. So no worries there. Um, Someone's also saying, it sounds like people have done very creative capstone projects. Should mine be geared toward my field, or is it acceptable to do something related to a hobby that might not have a direct business application? And I'll start, but I'm sure Don, you might want to add some thoughts here. But as I mentioned, I think hiring partners love to see a creative project. We have a lot of students that want to go into finance and they choose a financing project, and that's not as, I don't want to say exciting, but I feel like a lot of hiring partners have seen a lot of finance capstone projects where maybe this whiskey recommender would be something unique that they would say, hey, obviously we're a finance company. We don't work with whiskey, but we were really intrigued by what you did here, or actually what you did, this recommender could be applied to something in our industry or in our company. So I don't think it necessarily has to be industry geared or even company based. I think a lot of times you maybe want to make sure your technical approach is broad so that that application could be relatable across the board. But your concept, whether it's a hobby or a passion, usually is what makes the most unique and creative capstone projects.
Yeah, and I would say with regarding to hobbies, like I don't know, let's say your hobby is bird watching. Well, there might be that sounds like very niche, but there's probably people who would be interested in the success of some sort of bird watching application. So yeah, there's don't feel like, oh, it's a hobby. There's other people who will probably have that interest.
Yeah. I don't see any other questions. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Um, I'll take a second or two and see if there's any last minute ones. Um, Want to remind you guys, if you have any questions, please reach out to us at admissions@thedataincubator.com. We're happy to answer any questions that maybe we didn't get to. Maybe you want us to, you want to ask, a personal question that doesn't really relate to this topic. We also can schedule a call with you and tell you a little bit more about our program. So reach out to us. We're happy to help. And also, uh, remember that our application closes on Friday. So we would love to see you all apply. I can't wait to see you guys' capstone projects. Um, and someone asked just last minute question. Can you confirm the deadline is UTC and not EDT? That is correct, right, Don?
I believe so.
Yep, it is UTC. All right, guys, with that, we will wrap this up. But thank you all so much for joining us. Don, thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Yeah.
And hope to see your application soon. Bye, everybody. Have a good day.